Fire looks different on water. That's what I remember most about Manila Bay. Not the glory, not the victory, not Admiral Dewey's famous order. I remember watching Spanish ships burn, watching fire spread across the water itself, oil slicks turning the bay into a sea of flame. Fire looks different on water, looks alive, looks hungry. Patrick O'Brien, that's my name. I'm 64 years old now, and my hearing's not what it used to be. 42 years of working around ship engines and heavy guns will do that to you. My wife has to repeat herself 3 times before I understand her. But I can still hear those guns, clear as a bell, the ones from Manila Bay. I was 22 when I signed up for the Navy in 1896. Boston Irish, 3rd generation, and there weren't many paths open to us besides the church, the police, or the sea. I chose the sea. Seemed like the adventure. Seemed like a way out of the tenements, away from the factories and the streets that all looked the same. They assigned me to the USS Olympia, Commodore Dewey's flagship. Protected cruiser, they called her. 5,000 tons, twin screws, could make over 20 knots when she was running hard. Beautiful ship. White paint gleaming, brass polished bright, American flag snapping in the breeze. I was a gunner's mate, 2nd class. Worked the port side secondary battery, 5-inch guns. My station was below the main deck, in the casemate. Hot, cramped, loud as hell when the guns were firing. But it was honest work, and I was good at it. The crew of the Olympia was good men. There was my gun captain, Tom Finnegan, another Boston Irish, older than me by 10 years, taught me everything about working a naval gun. There was Charlie Peterson from Minnesota, loader on our gun, strongest man I ever met. Could heft those shells like they were nothing. And there was Jimmy Kowalski from Chicago, our powder man, always making jokes even when we were drilling in 100-degree heat. We trained constantly. Gun drills every day, sometimes twice a day. Load, aim, fire. Clear the breach. Load, aim, fire. Do it faster. Do it smoother. Do it until your muscles remembered the movements without your brain having to think. War's coming, boys, Tom would say. Trouble with Spain. They're going to send us somewhere hot, and when they do, you better be ready. He was right. War came in April 1898. The Maine had blown up in Havana Harbor back in February. Remember the Maine, they said. And by April, we were at war with Spain. The whole country was fired up about it. Newspapers calling for blood. Politicians making speeches about honor and empire. We were in Hong Kong when the war started. Dewey got his orders. Take the squadron to Manila in the Philippines. Destroy the Spanish fleet there. 7 ships total. The Olympia, the Baltimore, the Raleigh, the Petrel, the Concord, the Boston, and the revenue cutter McCulloch. We sailed from Hong Kong on April 27th. Nobody told us much, but we knew what was coming. The Spanish had a fleet at Manila. We were going to fight them. Simple as that. I remember standing on deck as we left Hong Kong, watching the coast of China disappear behind us. The South China Sea was calm, almost glassy. Beautiful sunset, all oranges and reds painting the sky. Charlie Peterson stood next to me at the rail. Think this is it, Pat? Think we're really going to see action? I expect so, I said. You scared? I thought about it. Was I scared? I didn't know. Nervous, maybe. Excited. Felt like standing on the edge of something, looking down into the unknown. Ask me after, I said. We drilled as we sailed. Gun drills, fire drills, damage control drills. Dewey ran a tight ship, wanted everything perfect. He knew we'd be outnumbered, outgunned in some ways. The Spanish had shore batteries, had mines in the harbor. But we had better training, better ships, better men. Or so they told us. The night of April 30th, we were just outside Manila Bay. Dewey gave the order. We'd enter the bay at midnight, under cover of darkness. Attack at dawn. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Lay in my hammock listening to the sound of the engines, feeling the vibration through the hull. All around me, other men were lying awake, too. Nobody talked. What was there to say? At midnight, we went to battle stations. I made my way down to the casemate, to my gun. Tom Finnegan was already there, checking everything one last time. Charlie and Jimmy arrived a few minutes later. "This is it, boys," Tom said quietly. "Everything we trained for. Do your jobs, watch each other's backs, and we'll come through this fine." We entered Manila Bay in the darkness, the whole squadron in line astern, running dark with no lights showing. I couldn't see anything from my station below deck. Just the steel walls around me, the gun, my crew. But I could feel the ship moving through the water, could feel us going deeper into enemy territory. They said later that the Spanish saw us come in, that their shore batteries fired at us but missed in the darkness. I didn't hear it over the sound of the engines. Or maybe I did and don't remember. Time gets strange before a battle. Minutes feel like hours. You wait and wait and wait. Dawn came. May 1st, 1898. Someone passed the word down. Spanish fleet ahead. 10 ships anchored in a line off Cavite. Shore batteries active. Mines reported in the channel. Dewey's voice came through the speaking tube, calm as if he was ordering breakfast. "You may fire when ready, Gridley." That was the order, the famous order. "You may fire when ready," and we did. The first salvo from our main battery shook the entire ship, 8-inch guns firing, the concussion so powerful you felt it in your bones. A second later, the secondary batteries opened up. My gun, our gun. Tom yanked the firing lanyard and the 5-inch gun roared. The casemate filled with smoke and the smell of burned powder. The noise was beyond anything, not just loud, but physical, like being inside a drum while someone beat it with a sledgehammer. "Load," Tom shouted. Charlie already had the next shell, 70 pounds of steel and explosive, hefting it toward the breach. Jimmy was right behind him with the powder charge. We worked like a machine, like we'd drilled 1,000 times. Slam the shell home, ram it, insert the powder, close the breach, aim, fire. Again and again and again. I couldn't see what we were shooting at. That's the thing about being a gunner below deck. You're blind. You do your job, load and fire, but you have no idea if you're hitting anything. No idea if the enemy is shooting back. No idea what's happening in the battle around you. All you know is the gun, the rhythm, the heat building up in the casemate until you're soaking through your uniform, the smoke getting thicker with each shot until you can barely see the man next to you, the noise pounding your ears until you can't hear the orders anymore. Just watch Tom's hand signals. Load, aim, fire, load, aim, fire. We made 5 runs past the Spanish line, 5 complete passes, firing the whole time. The Olympia led the squadron in a great oval, steaming past the Spanish ships at about 5,000 yards, turning, coming back past them again. Each pass, we fired. Every gun we had. The 8 inches, the 5 inches, even the 6-pounders topside. Hundreds of rounds, thousands maybe. The Spanish were firing back. We could hear it, the whistle of shells passing overhead, the splash when they hit the water nearby. A few times we felt impacts, the ship shuddering as Spanish shells hit home. "They're shooting high," Tom said during a brief pause. "Most of their fires going into the rigging. Bad gunners or bad luck for them." Good luck for us, I thought, but not for everyone. Word came down the speaking tube that the Baltimore had taken a hit. 5 men wounded. That made it real. We weren't invulnerable. We could die down here, trapped in this steel box, never even seeing who killed us. The heat was unbearable. Must have been over 100 degrees in the casemate. Maybe more. Sweat pouring off us, making the deck slippery. Charlie was stripped to the waist, his back running with sweat. Jimmy's face was black with powder smoke. My ears were ringing so loud I couldn't hear anything but a high-pitched whine. Tom's mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear the words. Didn't matter. I knew what to do. We all did. Load, fire, load, fire, load, fire. After the fifth pass, must have been 2 hours of continuous firing, though time was meaningless down there, we got the order to cease fire, pull back, let the smoke clear. We stood there panting like dogs, our hands black with powder, our uniforms soaked through. The gun barrel was so hot you could see it glowing slightly in the dim light. Charlie leaned against the bulkhead, trying to catch his breath. Jimmy sat down on the deck, his hands shaking. "Good work, boys," Tom said. His voice sounded far away, muffled through the ringing in my ears. "Good work." Someone came down with water. We drank it so fast we nearly choked. It was warm, tasted of the barrel it came from, but it was the best thing I'd ever tasted. "What's happening up there?" Charlie asked the messenger. "Are we winning?" "Spanish ships are burning," the messenger said. "At least 3 of them on fire, maybe more. We haven't taken much damage. Couple of hits, nothing serious." "Any casualties?" "Few wounded. Nobody dead on Olympia. Baltimore lost 1 man, I heard." We looked at each other. Nobody dead on our ship. We were all right. We'd made it through. But then the speaking tube whistled again. The order came down. Prepare to resume firing. It wasn't over yet. Tom checked the gun. Still hot, but serviceable. Charlie stacked more shells. Jimmy arranged the powder charges. We got ready to do it all again. "How many rounds we fired?" Jimmy asked. Tom glanced at the empty shell casings piled in the corner of the casemate. 100 at least, maybe more. 100 rounds. My arms ached from loading. My hands were blistered from handling the hot shells. My head pounded from the concussion of each shot. And we were about to start again. The speaking tube crackled. "All guns, prepare for final assault. We're going in close. Make every shot count." Close. That meant closer than 5,000 yards. That meant we'd see the Spanish ships clearly. That meant they'd see us clearly, too. That meant their gunners would have an easier time hitting us. "Here we go, boys," Tom said. "Stay sharp. Stay fast. We finish this now." The engines changed pitch. We were turning, building speed. Going in for the kill. I took my position at the gun. Hands on the next shell, ready to load. My heart was hammering in my chest. Sweat running into my eyes. The ringing in my ears so loud I thought my head might split open. But I was ready. We were all ready. The Olympia surged forward and we went back to war. The final pass was different. Closer, much closer. Close enough that between salvos, in those brief seconds when the smoke cleared, I could look through the gun port and actually see the Spanish ships. They were dying. The Reina Cristina, the Spanish flagship, was burning from stem to stern. Flames shooting up from her deck, black smoke pouring into the sky. I could see men on her deck, tiny figures moving through the fire. Some were jumping overboard. Some were just burning. "Load!" Tom shouted. I tore my eyes away from the gun port and grabbed the next shell, forced it into the breach. We fired again. The shells screamed across the water. Through the gun port, I saw it hit, saw the explosion on the Reina Cristina's waterline, saw the spray of water and debris. That was us. We did that. We were killing them. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. Those men on that burning ship, they were dying. We were killing them. Not in some abstract way, not as numbers in a report. Really killing them. Men with names, with families, with lives. "O'Brien," Tom grabbed my shoulder. "Stay with me. Next shell." I grabbed the next shell, loaded it. We fired, again and again and again. The Castilla was sinking. I could see her listing to port, her deck awash with water. Men were clinging to her rigging, trying to stay above the water as she went down. The Don Antonio de Ulloa was on fire, drifting out of formation, helpless. We were destroying them, systematically, methodically, one ship after another. The Spanish shore batteries were still firing, their shells raising geysers around us. One hit close, maybe 50 yards off the port beam, and the spray came through the gun port, drenching us with seawater. But most were missing. Their gunners were panicking, firing wild. Our gunners weren't panicking. We were trained. We were precise. We were a machine that ate Spanish ships and turned them into burning wrecks. Charlie was crying. I saw it when he turned to grab another shell, tears cutting tracks through the powder smoke on his face. But his hands never stopped moving. Load the shell, step back, load the next one. His body kept working even while his mind was breaking. I understood. I wanted to cry, too. Wanted to stop. Wanted to say, this is enough. They've had enough. Let them surrender. But you can't stop. That's not how it works. You keep loading, keep firing, until someone tells you to stop. Through the gun port, I saw a Spanish sailor on the burning Reina Cristina. He was on fire, actually on fire, his uniform blazing. He staggered to the rail and threw himself into the water. The flames went out when he hit the water, but I don't know if he survived. Don't know if he could swim with his burns. I loaded another shell, fired it at his ship. We hit the Don Juan de Austria amidships. The explosion was enormous. Must have hit her magazine. The entire center of the ship erupted in flame. When the smoke cleared, she was broken in half, both ends pointing up at the sky, men sliding off the tilted decks into the water. Jesus Christ, Jimmy whispered. We'd done that. Our shell. Maybe not that exact shot, but one of ours. We'd killed everyone on that ship. The noise was continuous now. Not just our guns, but all the ships firing, Spanish shells exploding in the water, burning ships groaning and cracking as they died. And underneath it all, if you listened, if you let yourself listen, you could hear screaming, men screaming as they burned, as they drowned, as they died. I tried not to listen, tried to focus on the job. Load, fire, load, fire. Don't think, don't feel, just do. But I could still hear them. A Spanish shell finally hit us square, smashed into the ship somewhere forward, the impact shuddering through the hull. For a second, I thought we were done for, thought we were going to burn like the Spanish ships. But the damage control parties handled it, put out the fire, patched the hole. We kept fighting. The Spanish couldn't stop us. They tried. God, they tried. Their guns kept firing even as their ships burned and sank. Men kept fighting even when there was no hope left. You had to respect that. Had to respect their courage even as you killed them. Around 11 in the morning, 4.5 hours after we'd opened fire, the Spanish fleet was finished. Burned, sunk, or beached. The shore batteries had stopped firing. White flags were starting to appear. The order came down. Cease fire. The sudden silence was shocking. After hours of continuous noise, of guns roaring and shells exploding, the silence felt unnatural. Wrong. My ears were still ringing, still hearing echoes of the battle that had stopped. We stood there in the casemate, the four of us, covered in powder smoke and sweat and seawater. Our gun barrel was so hot it was glowing red. The deck was covered in empty shell casings. The air was thick with smoke that burned your lungs. Charlie was sitting on the deck, his head in his hands. Jimmy was leaning against the bulkhead, staring at nothing. Tom was just standing there, looking at the gun like he didn't recognize it. I walked to the gun port and looked out. The bay was full of burning ships, full of debris and bodies floating in the water. The water itself was on fire in places where oil had spread across the surface. The smoke was so thick it turned the sun red. We'd won, destroyed the Spanish fleet without losing a single American life. It would be called one of the greatest naval victories in history. Perfect execution, perfect tactics, Perfect result. But all I could see were the bodies in the water. All I could hear were the screams. "O'Brien," Tom said quietly, "come away from there." I turned away from the gun port, away from the burning ships and the bodies and the water that was on fire. We'd won the battle, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd lost something else, something we couldn't get back, something human. We stayed at battle stations for another hour, even after the fighting stopped. Just standing there, waiting for orders that didn't come. Nobody knew what to do with ourselves. For hours we'd been loading and firing, loading and firing. Now there was nothing. Just silence and smoke and the weight of what we'd done. Finally, they secured from battle stations. We could leave our posts, go topside, see the sun. I climbed up from the casemate on shaky legs. My hands were blistered and bleeding from handling the hot shells. My arms felt like lead. My head was pounding, ears still ringing so loud I could barely hear. But none of that mattered when I got on deck and saw Manila Bay. Destruction everywhere. The entire Spanish fleet, 10 warships, destroyed in a single morning. Some were burning, the flames still reaching toward the sky. Some were already sunk, just masts sticking up above the water. Some were beached, listing to one side, abandoned. The Reina Cristina was still afloat, but barely. She was burning so hot you could feel the heat from half a mile away. Every few minutes there'd be another explosion as fire reached ammunition that hadn't been flooded. And the water, God, the water, full of debris, pieces of ships, pieces of men, bodies floating face down, some in uniform, some not. Some were moving, still alive, trying to swim to shore. Most weren't moving at all. Small boats were going out from shore. Filipino boats, Spanish boats, trying to pick up survivors. There weren't many. Most of the Spanish sailors had gone down with their ships or died in the fires. 300 dead, someone said. Maybe more. Maybe 400. I looked at Tom. He was standing at the rail, staring at the burning ships. His face was gray, empty. "We did that," I said. Not a question, a statement. He nodded slowly. "We did." Charlie was vomiting over the side. Jimmy sat down on the deck with his back against a stanchion and wouldn't get up. A corpsman came by, checked on him, said he was in shock. The crew was celebrating. Men were cheering, shaking hands, clapping each other on the back. We'd won, destroyed the Spanish fleet. Not one American killed. Greatest naval victory since who knows when. But down in the casemates, among the gunners who'd done the actual killing, there wasn't much celebrating. We just stood there looking at what we'd done. Dewey sent a message to Washington. Have engaged and destroyed Spanish fleet. Own casualties, none killed, 8 wounded. None killed, 8 wounded. We'd won a perfect victory. But it didn't feel perfect. Over the next few days, we stayed in the bay, helped with the cleanup, counted the dead. The Spanish had lost 381 men killed, wounded, or missing. We'd lost nobody. The newspapers would make a hero out of Dewey, would make heroes out of all of us. We pulled bodies from the water. That was the worst part, recovering the Spanish dead so they could be buried properly. Young men, most of them. Boys, really. Same age as us. They'd just been on the wrong ships, fighting for the wrong side. One boy couldn't have been more than 18, burned so bad you could barely tell he'd been human. I helped lift him into the boat, and his skin, it just came off in my hands, like wet paper. I threw up over the side, couldn't help it. Tom put his hand on my shoulder but didn't say anything. What was there to say? Charlie stopped talking altogether. Wouldn't speak. Couldn't speak. The corpsman said it was shock. Said he'd come around. He didn't. 3 days of silence. Just stared at nothing. Wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep properly. They transferred him off the Olympia a week later, sent him back to the States, medical discharge. I heard later he spent 6 months in a hospital, then went home to Minnesota. Never went near the ocean again. Jimmy tried to act normal, tried to joke like he used to. But it wasn't the same. The jokes were forced, hollow. And at night, in the berthing area, I'd hear him crying softly in his hammock, trying to muffle it so nobody would hear. We'd won the war in a morning. The Philippines would be ours now. America was an empire, they said, a world power. The newspapers were full of talk about manifest destiny, about bringing civilization to the backwards peoples of the world. Nobody asked the backwards peoples what they thought about that. And nobody asked us, the ones who'd done the actual fighting, if we thought empire was worth the cost. The Spanish surrendered Manila in August. The war was over. We'd won. America had won. Dewey was a national hero. We were all heroes. But I couldn't shake the image of that burning ship, that sailor on fire, throwing himself into the water, that boy whose skin came off in my hands. We stayed in the Philippines. The ship became part of the Asiatic squadron patrolling the islands. The Filipinos didn't want us there. Turned out they'd been fighting Spain for their own independence, and they didn't appreciate us taking over where Spain left off. So we fought them too. Different kind of fighting. Not big naval battles, but counterinsurgency, guerrilla war, ugly, nasty business. But that's another story. The Battle of Manila Bay was over in one morning. 4.5 hours of fighting, perfect victory, no American deaths. The history books would remember it as a triumph. I remember it differently. I remember the screaming, the burning, the bodies in the water. I remember the feeling of turning that crank, loading that gun, firing that shell, knowing each one was going to kill someone. I remember feeling like a machine, efficient, precise, inhuman. And I remember the moment, standing on deck after it was over, looking at the bay full of burning ships, when I realized that you can't do what we did and stay the same person you were before. War changes you, even a short war, even a perfect victory, especially a perfect victory. I stayed in the Navy for another 6 years after Manila Bay. Re-enlisted twice. Told myself I was fine, that it had been just one battle, that I'd gotten over it. Told myself the nightmares would stop eventually. They didn't stop. Every night I'd dream about that gun port, about looking through it and seeing the Spanish ships burning, seeing men on fire, seeing that sailor throw himself into the water. In the dreams, I'd try to stop loading the gun, try to tell Tom we needed to cease fire, but my hands would keep moving, keep loading shells, keep firing, no matter how much I wanted to stop. I'd wake up in my hammock gasping, my hands making the loading motions in the air. Other sailors learned not to wake me too suddenly, learned I might swing at them before I was fully conscious. We went to China for the Boxer Rebellion in 1900. More fighting, though nothing like Manila Bay. Shore parties, street fighting in Tientsin. That was different. Close quarters combat. You could see the men you were shooting, see their faces. I couldn't do it. We were advancing down a street, taking fire from a building, and I just froze. Stood there in the middle of the street while bullets cracked past. Tom, still with me, still my gun captain, even after Manila Bay, had to tackle me, dragged me to cover. "What the hell, O'Brien?" he shouted. "You trying to get killed?" Maybe I was. I don't know. I just knew I couldn't shoot anymore. Couldn't make myself pull that trigger, knowing what it would do to the person on the other end. They sent me back to the ship, put me on light duty. The corpsman asked me questions. Was I sleeping, eating? Did I feel anxious? But I lied. Said I was fine. Said it was just a moment of confusion. He didn't believe me. "You've got soldier's heart," he said. "Seen it before. Men who've been through combat, something breaks inside them." I'm fine, I insisted. Sure you are. But if you freeze up again, you're going to get yourself or someone else killed. He was right. I knew he was right, but I couldn't admit it. Couldn't admit that Manila Bay had broken something in me that wasn't healing. Jimmy Kowalski ate his pistol in 1901, shot himself in the head in his berthing compartment while the rest of us were on shore leave. Left a note that just said, "I'm sorry." We buried him at sea, wrapped in canvas, weighted down, slipped over the side. I watched him sink into the blue water off the Philippines and wondered how long it would be before I followed him. Tom was the one who held me together. He'd been through it, too, seen the same things, fired the same gun. But Tom was older, steadier. He had a wife and kids back in Boston. He had something to go home to. "You need to get out, Pat," he told me after Jimmy's funeral. "This life, it's eating you alive. You need to go home, find something else to do." "And do what? Work in a factory? The Navy's all I know." "Then you better learn something else, because this is killing you just as sure as it killed Jimmy. Just taking longer." I didn't want to believe him, didn't want to admit that I couldn't hack it anymore. But after China, after Jimmy's death, I couldn't pretend anymore. I served out my enlistment and mustered out in 1904, 6 years after Manila Bay, 26 years old and already feeling like an old man. They gave me an honorable discharge, a little bit of pay, and sent me back to Boston. Going home was strange. The city had changed, or maybe I had. Everything seemed louder, more chaotic. The crowds on the street made me nervous. Sudden noises, a door slamming, a wagon backfiring, would make me jump, my heart racing. My mother had died while I was overseas. My father was remarried to a woman I didn't know. My brothers and sisters had grown up, moved on with their lives. I was a stranger in my own family. I tried to find work, tried the docks, the factories, the shipyards, but I couldn't hold a job. Too jumpy, too distracted. Too many nightmares meant too little sleep. I'd show up exhausted, make mistakes, get fired. Started drinking. Not much at first, just a few beers to help me sleep. But a few became more. More became too much. I'd drink until I passed out, until the nightmares couldn't reach me through the fog of alcohol. Lost jobs, lost rooms, lost friends, drifted lower and lower. One night in 1906, I woke up in an alley with no memory of how I got there. My money was gone. My shoes were gone. I was lying in the gutter like trash. That was my breaking point. I could see where this was heading. Could see myself ending up like Jimmy Kowalski, just taking a different route to get there. Drinking myself to death instead of a bullet. Same destination either way. I thought about Manila Bay, about fire on water, about Spanish sailors burning to death while I loaded shells and fired them into their ships, about that perfect victory that had cost me everything. And I thought, they died, and I lived. But what kind of living is this? I sat in that alley as the sun came up, and I made a choice. I could keep going down this road and die in the gutter, or I could try, really try, to find a way to live with what I'd done. It took everything I had to choose to live. I got myself to a Catholic church, sat in confession for the first time in years, told the priest everything, the battle, the killing, the nightmares, the drinking, all of it. "What do I do, Father?" I asked. "How do I live with this?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You carry it. That's all you can do. Carry it and try to do some good with the life you have left. Those men died. You lived. That means something, even if you don't know what yet." It wasn't absolution, wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, a handhold, a way forward. I stopped drinking that day. Hardest thing I ever did, harder than Manila Bay. Took months of shaking and sweating and wanting to die, but I stopped. Got a job at a settlement house helping immigrants. Found a room at a boarding house run by a widow named Mary. Eventually, we got married. Started a life. The nightmares never stopped. The guilt never went away. But I learned to live with it. Learned to get up each morning and do something useful, even when the weight of Manila Bay was crushing me. Tom found me in 1910. Tracked me down somehow. He'd gotten out of the Navy, too, was working as a machinist in Boston. We had coffee, talked about old times, carefully avoided talking about that morning in May, 1898. "You doing all right, Pat?" he asked. "Some days better than others," I said. "You?" "Same. Some days I don't think about it at all. Other days, it's all I can think about." We sat in silence for a while. Then Tom said, "We did our duty." That's what I tell myself. We were ordered to fight, and we fought. What happened after? That's not on us. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't. Duty or not, orders or not, I'd still fired those shells. I'd still killed those men. That was on me. Would always be on me. "Yeah," I said anyway. "We did our duty." We finished our coffee and went our separate ways. I never saw Tom Finnegan again. Heard he died in 1923. Heart attack. He was only 55. I wondered if Manila Bay had killed him too. Just took 25 years to finish the job. I'm 64 years old now. 42 years since Manila Bay. Almost a lifetime. I've been married to Mary for 34 years. We have 2 children, 3 grandchildren. I worked at the settlement house for 20 years, helping people who needed help. Retired now, living quiet. By most measures, I suppose I've had a good life, a decent life. But Manila Bay never left me. The nightmares still come. Not every night anymore, but often enough. I'll dream about that casemate, about loading shells, about fire on water. I'll wake up and my hands will be making those motions again, reaching for shells that aren't there, ramming home rounds that don't exist. Mary knows. She's learned over the years, learned not to wake me suddenly, learned which days are bad days, when the memories are too heavy, learned to just hold me sometimes when I can't find words. She never asked for details. Never asked what happened in Manila Bay. Maybe she knew I couldn't tell her even if I wanted to. How do you explain to someone who's never been in combat what it feels like to kill? What it sounds like? What it does to you? You can't. So I never tried. My son asked me once, when he was maybe 12 years old, "Dad, were you a hero in the war?" The Spanish-American War was already history by then, already being taught in schools. They called it a splendid little war. Quick, clean, glorious. American victory. Empire won. "No," I told him. "I wasn't a hero. I was just a sailor doing a job." "But you fought at Manila Bay. We learned about it in school. Admiral Dewey destroyed the Spanish fleet and nobody died." Nobody died, that's what they taught. American nobody, anyway. The Spanish dead didn't count in the history books. "A lot of people died," I said. "Just not Americans." He looked confused, disappointed maybe. He wanted his father to be a hero from the stories they told in school. He didn't understand that those stories were lies, clean lies that covered up the messy, bloody truth. I never told him the truth, never told either of my children. What would be the point? They'd never understand. Nobody who wasn't there could understand. The Great War came in 1914, millions dead in Europe, the worst war the world had ever seen, and all I could think was, this is what we started. Manila Bay, the Spanish-American War, America becoming an empire. That's where this road led. To millions dead in trenches, to poison gas and machine guns and slaughter on a scale that made Manila Bay look like a skirmish. My son wanted to enlist in 1917 when America joined. Wanted to go fight the Kaiser, save democracy, all the usual patriotic talk. 18 years old and ready to become a hero. I told him no, flat out refused. We fought about it. He said I didn't understand, said this was different, said this war mattered. They all matter, I said, and they all end the same way, with boys dead and old men making speeches about glory. But you fought. You were at Manila Bay. That's why I'm telling you no. Because I was at Manila Bay. Because I know what war really is. He went anyway. Forged my signature on the papers, joined the army, went to France. He came back in 1919, gassed at Belleau Wood. His lungs never worked right after that. He died in 1935, 43 years old. The doctors said it was pneumonia, but I knew better. The war killed him. Just took 17 years to finish the job. Just like it killed Tom. Just like it killed Jimmy. Just like it's been killing me for 42 years. That's what people don't understand. War doesn't end when the shooting stops. It keeps killing long after the battles are over. Kills you slowly, piece by piece, year by year. I think about Manila Bay every day. Every single day for 42 years. Sometimes it's just a flash. The smell of powder smoke. The sound of the gun firing. Other times it's more. I'll be doing something ordinary, washing dishes or reading the paper, and suddenly I'm back in that casemate. Back at that gun. Back loading shells that will kill men I'll never meet. The guilt never goes away. People tell you it should. It was war. You were following orders. They were the enemy. But none of that matters when you're lying awake at night, seeing the faces of men you killed, hearing their screams, knowing that you did that you made that happen. I killed men at Manila Bay. I don't know how many, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. Every shell I helped fire into those Spanish ships killed someone. Every single one. They were just men. Just sailors doing their jobs like me. They weren't monsters. They weren't evil. They were on the wrong side of a war they probably didn't even want to fight. And I killed them anyway. The newspapers called it a perfect victory. No American casualties. Tactical masterpiece. Dewey was a hero. We were all heroes. But there's no such thing as a perfect victory. Not when it's bought with 400 lives. Not when it leaves you carrying ghosts for the rest of your life. I went to church every Sunday for 42 years. Prayed for forgiveness. Prayed for the souls of the men I killed. Prayed for peace I knew I'd never find. The priest, different ones over the years, but I always told them the same thing. They'd say, God forgives you, but God wasn't the one who had to live with it. I was. Long pause, shallow breathing. They want to do a big celebration in 48, 50th anniversary of Manila Bay. Want to get all the survivors together, have a ceremony, give us medals, make speeches about glory and honor and sacrifice. I won't go. Can't go. Can't stand there and pretend it was glorious while 400 dead men scream in my memory. There were about 300 of us on the Olympia at Manila Bay. Most are gone now. Charlie Peterson died in an asylum in 1920. Jimmy Kowalski in 1901. Tom Finnegan in 1923. So many others I've lost track of. We're dying off, the Manila Bay veterans. Soon there won't be any of us left. And then the only story will be the one in the history books. The clean story. The glorious story. The perfect victory. Nobody will remember what it really was. Nobody will remember the screaming, the burning, the bodies in the water. Nobody will remember that fire looks different on water. Nobody will remember that we were just boys. 22 years old and killing men we didn't hate for reasons we didn't fully understand. That's what haunts me most, I think. Not just that I killed, but that I didn't even know why. The politicians had their reasons. Empire, manifest destiny, protecting American interests. But down in that casemate, loading that gun, firing those shells, I didn't know why. I just did it because I was told to. And 400 men died because boys like me followed orders without questioning them. If I could go back, if I could talk to that 22-year-old sailor standing at his gun in Manila Bay, I don't know what I'd tell him. To refuse? To mutiny? That's not realistic. You can't refuse in war. The machine grinds on whether you participate or not. Maybe I'd just tell him, remember their faces. Remember what you did. Don't let yourself forget. Don't let yourself believe the lies about glory and honor. Carry it. Carry all of it for the rest of your life. Because that's what I've done. For 42 years, I've carried Manila Bay. Every man I killed, every scream I heard, every moment of that perfect victory that destroyed something in me. I'll carry it until I die. And when I die, probably soon now, my heart's not what it used to be. Maybe then I'll finally see them. Those Spanish sailors, that boy on fire, the 18-year-old whose skin came off in my hands. Maybe I'll finally get to say I'm sorry. My wife says I should talk about the good times, the friends I made, the places I saw, the adventure of it all. But there were no good times at Manila Bay. Just killing, just death, just fire on water. And that's all there ever was. They can keep their medals, keep their ceremonies, keep their history books with their clean stories and perfect victories. I know what Manila Bay really was. I was there, I did the killing, and I've been paying for it every day since.